This is Bleav, Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Doesn't it? Or did. Joe Cox with an up and out. Wide open. Touchdown. Israel Troop.
Snap to Young. Drops back. Pressure from the edges. He throws near sideline. And it's intercepted. Intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Near sideline. Breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. 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 Georgia.
Good evening, neighborhood. How about them Dogs?
32, 18. Let the celebration begin.
All right, ready in 3, 2, 1. Hi, what's going on? It's the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Network. Joining me, hopefully a little bit later. He had a late night. He had a middle school baseball game. Looks like Israel's going to be coaching just about everything. So in order to give you the promise, keep the promise of giving you content each and every day, I'm going to fly solo tonight. I'll give you a quick little episode here on a couple of topics that I've been kind of seeing on social media, things like that. So, but hopefully Israel will join me here pretty soon. But this is the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Network. I'm Corey Burton, and I'm glad to be here with you, man. It's going to be it's going to be an action-packed season, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of storylines with this Georgia team. There's a lot of things going on, and we'll get into all of that. I mean, you've got a loaded roster. Number 2 recruiting class. Deuce Robinson's out there on the hook. The baseball team is going to be, I think they're poised to try to make some headway in the conference. The basketball team is slowly improving, but there is an improvement, and Kirby's just doing his thing. So we're gonna talk a little bit about a few things that are out there in the news. But first, we are presented by BetOnline. It remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. Everything from NFL, Super Bowl's coming up. We'll talk some prop bets there. Bowl season and esports. So you'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. So BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. So we're the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. Head to Betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure you use that promo code Bleav to receive your rewards. BetOnline is where the game starts. So, some scheduling. We'll start with the scheduling stuff because there's been some things in the news where Oklahoma and Texas were supposed to join the conference next year. Instead, it looks like Fox is going to want some of their money back, and there's some controversy there, but it has undoubtedly affected Georgia's scheduling. Over, Georgia was supposed to play Oklahoma in a non-conference game this season. That's why Georgia rescheduled with Ball State, because it ended up being was going to be a conference game, and they weren't going to have that return trip to Athens, so they had to cancel the Oklahoma game. Well, when Oklahoma decided to join the SEC, Georgia couldn't find another Power 5 opponent to put back in that spot. So the only person that was available was Ball State. So that's why you have a Ball State UT Martin open to the season, was because Georgia was supposed to take a trip out to Norman, and that didn't happen. So they're going to join in 2025 now, it appears. So, again, not ideal, but a lot of it comes down to money. And a lot of it comes down to the Big 12 wants their money. Fox wants their money. It all comes down to broadcast rights and stuff like that. So, a lot of things around the conference, a lot of storylines around the conference with this that are affected. There's some stories about Tennessee and Texas potentially playing, and Arch Manning never playing in Knoxville. Which, I mean, with the Texas, I mean, what if it gets pushed back another year, right? So yeah, it's crazy. But the talks are stalled. And they'll come to agreement. Television partners, things like that, would leave earlier. But I think what it's going to come down to is exchanging games, compensation for leaving the conference and going to another TV deal, because Fox has the Big 12. I think CBS is now going to have the Big 10, and ABC is going to have the SEC. So, but negotiations have fizzled out so far. They're not dead. There's still a chance. And there's still a chance that this SEC scheduling conflict would end up working out. And I think it's going to go to a 9-game conference schedule where you have 6 regular opponents. And no, you have 3 regular opponents and 6 rotators, to where I think you can play everyone every other year. So the fact that Georgia still has not played at Texas A&M, to me, is ridiculous. The fact that Georgia has not visited College Station, the fact that there's schools that have not, the fact that Texas A&M has not visited they've been in the league since 2012. They haven't visited every conference place, and they haven't hosted every conference team. So that's going to change, hopefully. So also what you're looking at with this is, again, it's TV. It's all TV. And it's all money. So eventually something will get done. ESPN and Fox will strike a deal, as they always do. And, right now the SEC has a schedule without Texas and Oklahoma. Big 12 has released its schedule now without that includes Texas and Oklahoma. So they've been operating as normal. So stay tuned to this story. This will be an interesting story. They'll get it all sorted out. Georgia from 2024 on has really great out-of-conference opponents. I think they get UCLA in 2024. I'm going to look that up here in just a second. But they have, I think they have Clemson on the docket. I think Ohio State's on the docket. Adding Oklahoma to the conference would be awesome. So lots of good opponents down the line. Very, very exciting. So, they get Clemson actually in 2024. They go Clemson, Tennessee Tech, and Georgia Tech right now. And then they're at Texas A&M next year. So that's exciting. Finally, right? Finally, we get to visit the land of the Aggies. So in 2025, it's UCLA. So the non-conference is UCLA, Austin Peay, Charlotte, and Georgia Tech. That's your 2025 schedule. 2026, it's a return trip for UCLA. So 2025 is out to California. 2026, the Bruins come to Athens. We also get Louisville that year. So that's interesting now. So you get a Louisville team that just hired Brian Braum. So they're hoping he's going to be there for a while. That should be an exciting game in 2026. Not to mention probably play Texas or Oklahoma that year as well in conference. Play Western Kentucky and Georgia Tech. Probably going to have to drop one of those games. Probably drop Western Kentucky maybe. So, but UCLA and Louisville. So a Pac-12 and an ACC team there. So that's an exciting out of conference. Then in 2027, we welcome the Noles. And then Louisville has a return trip to Sanford Stadium. So you're at Doak Campbell Stadium, Labor Day weekend. That should be a classic. Mike Norvell's got Florida State rolling. And you got Georgia Tech as well. And then all the way out to 2028, going to have to reschedule that Texas game. But you got Florida State that same year. Probably will look to find somebody once Texas officially joins. They'll probably end up canceling that game. 2029, I got Clemson and Texas and Georgia Tech so far. They haven't gotten their mid-major schedules lined up yet. And all the way out in 2030, you got Ohio State. So Ohio State, if you don't ever meet up with us in the playoff, we got to wait till 2030 to get that rematch. Or maybe Urban Meyer will be back. Maybe Ryan Day will still be there. Maybe Ryan Day will be in the NFL. Who knows? But that's when Ohio State gets its first regular season matchup with the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's on September 14th in 2030. Pretty crazy, huh? So a little bit of scheduling drama, mostly TV stuff, but a little bit of scheduling drama there. It'll all work itself out, I'm sure. Hopefully Texas and Oklahoma can join the conference next year instead of in 2 years. So we'll see how that all shakes out, but stay tuned to that story. That's an ever developing story from the conference. Now, some other things happening, right? So Alabama hired Kevin Steele today as their defensive coordinator. Why is that good? Because they didn't hire Glenn Schumann. Glenn Schumann was the other candidate for that Alabama defensive coordinator job. Now, if you don't know, Glenn Schumann was an assistant at Alabama with Kirby Smart, Mel Tucker, those guys. So he came over when Kirby got that job at Georgia. So Glenn Schumann remains the Georgia defensive coordinator for now. However, he has emerged as a highly sought-after candidate for the Miami defensive coordinator job, right? And he's in that, I think, with Jim Leonard. I think those were the two names that I saw that were in line for that. So the question is, would he be interested? And I don't think so. Money talks, of course. I don't think I just don't see it, because if you turn down Alabama, which is reported they did, but if he didn't take Alabama, which I don't know why they would go with Kevin Steele over Glenn Schumann. Maybe it's a scheme fit. Maybe Schumann behind the scenes says, "Nah, I'm not going." But it wouldn't make any sense, I don't think, if he did turn it down, to be able to say, "Hey, hey, Nick Saban, you're the greatest coach of all time, and you have an endless supply of money. And in 2 years, I get any head coaching job that I want," much like Dan Lanning did at Oregon. I'm going to go down here to Miami, where it's not a sure thing that Mario Cristobal is going to be around much longer, because if I remember correctly, you took a massive L against MTSU. We made jokes about that. So I don't know. But then again, money talks. So if they offer him enough money, is he going to turn it down? I don't know. But I just don't see, not unless he just didn't get the Alabama job and he really wants to leave Athens. To me, I think that would be crazy. He's got great job security in Athens. He would have had a similar deal in Alabama if he chose to leave it. Like, if he was going to leave, Alabama would have been the destination if, in fact, he was offered that position, which I don't know that he was. But unless he goes to the NFL. But I just don't see him going to be the Miami Hurricanes. There's just no upside to that, because you can get fired in a year if things don't go right. And some of that stuff is out of your control. Like, you can't control the offense not being able to put points on the board. Like, they just fired their offensive coordinator, Josh Gaddis, who almost took the entire ship down with him. So who knows? But I saw that and I was like, what? Would he really go? I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, if he does, yeah, whatever, man. So I saw that, but I'm not overly worried about that. I think he knows that, hey, I'm in a great situation. Will Muschamp's not going to be around here forever, and I have a chance to keep learning and keep developing. I have a chance for a three-peat, honestly, and I'm just going to stay here. Yeah. So again, the update on Todd Monken, that's the one we got to look at. So Todd Monken has interviewed in several places. He was flirting with the Jets there, but the Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's had 2 interviews with both clubs. Now, it seemed like when Monken took this job 3 years ago, he wanted to be 3 years and then back in the NFL because it was a disaster in Cleveland. Disaster under Freddie Kitchens. And a lot of that wasn't under his control. He didn't call the plays there. I don't know what he did. But it was such a mess of an organization the way it was run. I don't know that he knew what was expected of him. But there's some considerations going on. I think some of these clubs are waiting until after the Super Bowl because guys like Mike Kafka and some of the other assistants are waiting in the wings to get interviewed for these offensive coordinator spots. So, it's not surprising. I think Kirby knew this all along. I think Kirby knew that, hey, I've got a guy that wants to get back to the NFL, and he's going to work like mad to get back to the NFL, and that's okay, because you should have these kind of ambitions. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he's like, dude, are you worried about replacing a coordinator? Are you worried about getting into a space where you're constantly replacing coordinators? And I told him, I was like, look, man, it just comes with the territory, man. Like, if you're a good leader, you want your guys to go upward mobility, which I know it seems like it's lateral because it's offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator, but let's be honest, you're going from college to the NFL. It's an upgrade, right? I mean, the NFL is the best of the best. And that's where he wants to be. So if you're not supporting that as a leader, you're not a good leader. Like, it's not like he's stepping down to go be the offensive coordinator at Wake Forest. Or it's not like he was saying, hey, you know what, Kirby, I really think I'm going to give the Miami Hurricanes a shot. I know we just won back-to-back national championships. I know I'm the highest paid offensive coordinator right now. And I'm probably going to be the first $3 million coordinator. But, I think North Carolina seems to be a better fit. That doesn't happen because Kirby's going to make sure that you have everything that you need to be happy. So is he going to go back to the NFL? He's had some interviews, but nothing is set in stone. But wouldn't be surprised if he ended up with the Ravens. That seems to be the favorite now. So that'd be good. Be good for him. I think John Harbaugh's a good guy to work for. It seems like he is. He's been there for a while. People seem to be happy. So, who knows, man? Baltimore could use it. I mean, could you imagine Todd Monken with a guy like Lamar Jackson and what he could do to kind of bolster the passing phase of what he does? I think it'd be good if they can keep Lamar. But we're not the Bleav in Ravens, Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if we have one of those on our network. I'm sure we do. I'm sure we have every NFL team represented. So, but who would replace Todd Monken? Mike Bobo would certainly be a candidate, and there's been some talk about him. There's been some people that have kind of hammered that decision a little bit. Not really a decision yet, but I think people have seen what Mike Bobo's gone through, and they just don't want him for whatever reason. Now, I would hate for us to just automatically give it to him. I don't think that's proper. I don't think that would be a proper use of time. I don't think that would be very wise to do that. I think you need to kick over every rock that you can to find the best fit. But Mike Bobo will certainly be one of the rocks that you kick, and you probably kick repeatedly just to kind of see, hey, do you still have the tread left on your tires from when you left the first time? You were actually starting to gain a little bit of ground as a head coach at Colorado State. Then you had some health problems. Probably should have hung it up for a little while. Probably should have taken a break after Colorado State. But he went to South Carolina, then Auburn, and then to Georgia. And he's had a reduced role at Georgia, which has been great for him off the field. So who knows, man? Who knows? I think he's still very bright when it comes to offensive football. I think he has a lot of his concepts are great. I think you see a lot of Bobo in Todd Monken, and you see a lot of Bobo influence with some of the plays that we ran during the course of the season. And you saw a lot of Buster Faulkner influence as well. I mean, I think Todd Monken did a good job using his staff to be able to do that. But I think if you're going to go if you would go the Bobo route in this hypothetical situation, which there is no situation because Todd Monken is still the offensive coordinator. He hadn't left yet, but let's be honest, he's probably going to get one of these offensive coordinator jobs in the NFL. Let's be honest. He's interviewed twice. He will have interviewed twice now for the Ravens. He's done the same with the Bucks. So he's going to get his chance in the NFL, and I'm happy for him. But I think what I'd like to see now is kind of a situation like you have on the defensive side of the ball. You have a Mike Bobo, but you've got a young up-and-comer that needs to kind of train a little bit. That will help with the bulk of the game planning, but Bobo will call plays. And somebody that's just there learning. So, because Bobo's not going to be able to do this forever. Bobo has health problems. He would be a temporary guy, kind of like Will Muschamp. Just a guy to kind of guide you through the next few years. And eventually Glenn Schumann's going to take this thing over or he's going to leave. And eventually you would hope the same for the other. Now, are you going to name them co-coordinators, whatever? I don't know. I don't know the route you go. But I do know that there would be a ton of interest in this job should it open up. So Mike Bobo's going to have some competition regardless. Kirby's going to find the best fit. I mean, we've won back-to-back national championships. He's been highly successful since he's been here. So I trust his judgment as far as hiring coaches. No one's ever going to be 100% on coordinators or even assistants. Nobody's ever going to be 100%. Nick Saban is far from 100% in hiring assistant coaches. Kirby's far from 100%. Mark Richt was far from 100%. Everyone is far from 100% in hiring coaches. But you just got to realize sometimes and just bite the bullet and realize that, hey, maybe I made a mistake. And Kirby did that on his last one. So, but before we switch over to our next topic, you can find us on social media at Coach Burton 36, at Troopstar 28 on Twitter is our personal accounts, at Bleav in Dawgs is all social media platforms. You can find our podcast wherever you get your podcast. So like I was listening to it on SiriusXM the other day. Spotify is one of my favorite places to listen to the family of Bleav shows out there. So Bleav in Badgers, right if you get done with this. If you want a really good Big Ten show, go check out Bleav in Badgers. Bleav in Kentucky, Bleav in Tennessee, Bleav in Ole Miss football, Bleav in Auburn football. All the shows that we have on the Bleav family of networks, Charity Stripe, Smash and Dash, the Joe and Rufino show, Are You Serious Sports, Bar Talk with Jenna Duddleston. I mean, there's a lot of great shows on the Bleav network. So you go check any of those out. Like, subscribe, find us on YouTube. You can also find me on SEC After Dark. That'll be live on Wednesday night, 8:30 Central. So it's a late night show. And we kind of treat it that way, honestly. But you can check me out there. During the season of Legal Motion, I'm also there. But this is the bread and butter right here, Bleav in Georgia Dogs. We had a really big week last week, and we thank you for that. Let's keep up that momentum. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Download the show. Go back through the archives. Download those shows. Listen to where we've been and how we've been on the come up, right? Things are getting better. We're going to come at you more frequently. So this is a great opportunity for this thing to grow, and for it to start growing in February is incredible. So by the time we get to football season, hopefully the goal is to have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. All right. The goal is to be averaging 200 downloads per episode. The goal is to average over 1,000 views on every episode. So let's get this thing going, guys. I want to be the number one Georgia show out there. And that can't happen without you. And I definitely appreciate you so far. Let's keep it going. So, last topic, Georgia is getting ready to kick off a pretty decent week for basketball. We got Ole Miss, and then we got Kentucky, they're good. They haven't been world beaters, but basketball's been an issue. Israel and I talked about this a little bit last night. Got to find some things down low. But the question is, and I don't know if this is something that can be talked about over just one episode. So this will probably be multiple episodes. But how do you fix recruiting? Right? How do you fix recruiting? Well, I'll tell you what. When you fix recruiting, you have to pack the steg. First of all, you have to make the environment something that's desirable. And that's not just the building space, right? That building, I think, was a campground for the Confederate, or not Confederate, for the even earlier than that, for the Continental Army. I think that's where they trained is at Stegman Coliseum. They had gladiator matches at Stegman Coliseum. So you gotta, they've done a great job of facelifting that building, but they might, I don't know where they're going to put it. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they tear down and maybe they play temporarily in Phillips Arena or Gwinnett Arena. Maybe they, we're not very good right now. We're not drawing huge crowds. So we could go to Gwinnett Arena, play while the new arena is being built. Hell, we could play at Ramsey Center, to be honest with you. But, I think the atmosphere's got to change, right? And, you see a lot of posts on message boards, on Twitter, anytime Georgia's playing basketball. I think what you've got to have, if you're going to have a great basketball culture, is you got to have a positive fan base. Now, I know there's not much to be positive about. I get it. There's not, you can't watch Georgia basketball and be too excited, right? Because the wins aren't coming. And we've gotten thumped the last 2 weeks. And we're probably going to get thumped against Alabama in a couple of weeks. We're probably, Kentucky's going to be a tough game, but luckily it's at home. LSU's probably going to be a tough game. Ole Miss will be a tough game for us because we're probably about equal talent-wise. But, I think as a fan base, if you're going to recruit, then you got to make Georgia basketball seem like you don't want to miss out, right? I think the student section, regardless, just needs to find ways to get involved in these games and find ways to uplift this basketball program. A great student section can account for one win a season, right? Now, I know this is high school basketball, and the example is kind of it's not quite apples to apples, but my high school, our basketball team had no business competing. We made it to the region Final Four, a 16-team region, and won games that we should not have won. Why? Because we had great fan support. We didn't wow you with talent, but we had a great student section, and we really just made it tough on opposing players. Why do you think people struggle when they come to Duke? Why do you think people ended up going to Duke? Why do you think Coach K was successful at Duke? He put out a winning product, but he also had support of the students. The students, once they got on board, once the fans got on board and made Cameron Indoor a premier place to play, you started seeing recruits pouring in. Instead of you get one or two and you get that one magical class that turned things around for Duke. There's a whole 30 for 30 on that. But once they kind of got over the hump after that season, and you had the Cameron Crazies and Krzyzewskiville and all of that stuff, it started, they had to turn away recruits. They were at a point when Coach K was hired, they couldn't win a recruiting battle with North Carolina A&T. They would lose recruiting battles to Division II schools because Duke wasn't very good. And Coach K comes in, changes that all around. And next thing you know, it's just an NBA factory of players. And they're right down the road from North Carolina, and they're competing head-to-head with the Tar Heels. So this is kind of like part two of what Israel and I were talking about last night. If you want to fix Georgia basketball, all right, fans, we can be a part of that. Now, Coach White has to put something out on the court that's worthy. right? You can't have seasons like we've had the last few, the last 3 under Mark Fox and the whole Tom Crean era. You can't have seasons like that because there's nothing to cheer for. There's nothing to get excited about. Like, you can only fake it so far. So I get that. But we got a new regime. We got a guy that seems to know that the team plays hard on the perimeter. Just hadn't quite gotten that inside talent yet. And that's what we discussed last night. But in order to take the next step, Stegman has got to be a desirable place to play. Recruits have got to say, I want to play here. I want to play in front of them. And that's what you got to do. And if you want to be successful, that's the ticket. So I'm going to leave you with that on this solo mission here. So part 2 of Fixing Georgia Basketball. Man, it was a successful show. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So we covered some scheduling issues, like Texas and Oklahoma will not be joining the conference. That's affecting Georgia's schedule because the strength of schedule is very poor because of the circumstances where you have to cancel games. We took a look at Glenn Schumann's situation, Todd Monken's situation, and again, fan support for basketball. Let's make it happen. Let's get out there. Let's get it done, man. Let's go. I want to be excited about Georgia basketball. I'm not there yet. I'm getting there, but I want to be excited too. And I want to turn on the TV for a home game and see opposing players just melting because they're wilting under the pressure of the student section. That's what I want to see. That's what recruits want to see. That's where people want to play. Right? That's why Rupp Arena is so good. That's why now Alabama is so good. Auburn is an impossible place to play. Tennessee now. Thompson Bowling Arena. Tough environment. So that's the key. But I'm going to leave you there. It is the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Network presented by Betonline.ag. Thank you for listening. We hope you subscribe. We hope you keep listening. Find us wherever you find your podcast. Hit us up on the YouTube channel. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Give us some support. Show us some love. We want to be the number 1 show on the Georgia Network. So in lieu of Israel Troop, who is reprising his role as a baseball manager, I'm Corey Burton. Thank you for listening. We'll be back here with another episode as we bring you more and more content. That's our goal. Thank you. And of course, go Dogs.